Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for attending our Power Cloud reporting integrated Microsoft Excel reporting for Financial Edge NXT demo. Today, Robbie Pollock, our Vice President of Development, will be presenting the demonstration, and I'll be queuing up a few slides here to give you some background information on the product. And then from there, I'll turn the screen over to Robbie to actually take us through a product demonstration. So, history on Power Cloud reporting. It was developed with Blackbaud's published Sky APIs. So that's important to you because A, we're conforming with Blackbaud's established data and security protocols. And we're also maintaining the product so that as updates are occurring to your Financial Edge NXT system, it's not impeding the functionality of your Power Cloud reporting application. In total, Capital Business has more than 11 years of development experience with Excel-based reporting tools. So today you'll see kind of a culmination of that experience with the Power Cloud reporting demo. System requirements, you do need Financial Edge NXT. This will not work with Financial Edge 7. The product itself is an Excel add-in, so it lives in Excel, and when it's installed, you're downloading it from the Microsoft Store into your Excel application. The product will work with Excel versions 2016, 2019, and Microsoft Office 365. So some of the benefits that you can expect from Power Cloud reporting. One is multi-environment reporting. This will work with multiple Financial Edge NXT databases. So if you've got a client who has 3 or 4 different databases, you can actually bring each database information into a separate tab and then use another tab in the workbook to combine that information into a single tab. Future releases of Power Cloud reporting will also allow for access to your Razor's Edge data. So you can start combining some donor specific information with your financial information via Power Cloud reporting. One of the big advantages here for the non-accountants is being able to deliver financial information in a familiar format, being Excel, which is less intimidating than just a straight financial report. So we're seeing folks provide Power Cloud reporting to board members in board packets, and also providing information, income and expense information to their program and budget managers in Power Cloud reporting. Once folks receive a Power Cloud report in Excel, they do have drill down, which empowers especially these budget managers who are asking questions about how their programs are being charged and going back to the finance staff and interrupting their day. It's a big benefit to allow them to drill into these reports and be able to answer their own questions. The reports themselves really can be refreshed in minutes. So what we're doing is taking a cycle where somebody who's using Financial Edge NXT is building a report, exporting the report, then putting it into, cutting and pasting it into an Excel format, and then having to repeat that process every time they need to update the data in the Excel spreadsheet. This is a process then that reduces what might be several hours into minutes by pressing a refresh button in the Power Cloud reporting built spreadsheet. Additionally, because this product was designed for Financial Edge NXT, it can produce some advanced reporting that's not available in the base system. It's also doing away with the technical challenge of using a third-party report writer. Non-technical staff can easily use this product. When you download it, there are no table joins or data libraries that have to be built before you can start using the product. It's ready to roll in about 15 minutes. And folks who are good users of the Financial Edge NXT reporting tool, as well as Excel, can become very strong users of Power Cloud reporting within a few hours. So licensing on the product, it's sold by power users and view users. Power users can build reports, refresh reports, and drill into reports. View users have the capability to receive a Power Cloud reporting built spreadsheet. They can refresh that spreadsheet and drill into the spreadsheet, but they cannot change the underlying report formatting and build. Power Cloud reporting does not take up any of your Financial Edge NXT viewer or main user accesses unless you are drilling into a journal entry batch, an account or project record, accounts payable invoices, or budget scenarios. In most cases, folks want to drill down one level and see the transactional detail behind an account balance. If they go a level lower, then they are invoking one of their Financial Edge NXT users. And Robbie will go into some more detail during the demonstration today about the drill down capabilities. The licensing in Power Cloud reporting is named. It is not concurrent like your Financial Edge NXT users. So beyond the demo that you're about to see, please contact me, Bob Schilling. You see my email, my 800 line below, for any additional product questions, pricing questions, or training options that are available to you for Power Cloud reporting, and I'll be happy to answer those for you. And at this point, I'm going to turn things over to Robbie to take us through the product.
Thanks, Bob. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Robbie. I'll be taking you through the overview today of Power Cloud reporting. Bob has mentioned that Power Cloud reporting is an Excel add-in. So once you go to the Microsoft Store, and the way you do that is under Insert, and you do Get Add-ins, and this takes you to the Microsoft Store, you simply enter Power Cloud reporting. And then it will find it, and you can just add it there very quickly, and then you're good to go. Once you add the add-in, you will see the icon in your copy of Excel. So we'll go ahead and click on the Power Cloud reporting. And once we do that, I'm already logged in, so it loaded the home page for me automatically. So you can see this is the Power Cloud reporting panel. So within this panel is where you're going to do all of your work. Now I'm logged in as a super administrator and a power user. So I have access to all of the functional areas within Power Cloud. Your viewers would only have the capability of going to their report queue and seeing the reports that have been assigned to them through security. And then they can, of course, run and refresh those reports and drill down into the detail. So what I'm going to do first really is just run a couple of different reports that I've built, and then we're going to drill into the data and into the information. And then after that, we're going to go into more of the technical aspects of the power user and how the design of a report looks. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have this sample revenue and expense report that I've created. So I'm going to click on Run. So when you click on Run, it loads up the report in design mode. Okay, so this is the report that the power user would have created. And you can see because I'm using Excel, I have the capability of doing all the different formatting. So I've done some highlights here. I've done some bolds, some centering. I've also done some underlines as well, just to kind of make the report from a presentation perspective look a little more appealing. Now, without Power Cloud reporting, to get a report that looked and was formatted in this manner, you would have to run the information in Financial Edge and then export that out to Excel and then do this process. But that's repetitive, so you're doing that time after time. With Power Cloud reporting, you're creating the look and the feel and the framework of the report one time. From that point forward, then it's just a matter of refreshing and running the report. Okay, so to run the report, a couple things I want to point out here on the refresh panel. One is this control date. Okay, so the control date, you can change that control date every time you run the report. Okay. Now, what this control date does is that determines the time frame for each column on the report. When we get over to the design mode, I'll show you how every column on your report can have its own unique time frame or time period. Okay. And that's going to really be based off of this control date. So you can really manipulate the time period for every column on your report simply by changing the control date. And we'll take a look at that in just a few minutes. Okay, so I'm going to just go down here. I'm not going to filter this report any further than what I did when I actually built the report. So I'm going to click run. And once I do this, now it's actually refreshing the report. So now you can see I have live data within the report. Okay, so under contribution revenue, you can see all of the accounts with the amounts here. And if I scroll down to the lower part of the screen, same thing. I've got another revenue section. That's event revenue with my amounts. And then down below here, same thing under the expenses, you can see the salary expenses, fringe expenses, and administrative expenses. And then all the way down to my totals here that I've got listed, okay, down here in my formulas. Now, when you're looking at the information here in the report, let's say you wanted to actually drill into some of these numbers and look at where this information is coming from. So maybe I want to look at this 3346 number. So when I click drill down, you can see it takes me and shows me all of the individual transactions. It also shows me the post status here. Now, when you refresh the report, you have the ability to include unposted transactions into the report as well, if that's something that you desire to do. Now, at this level, you're still in Power Cloud reporting, okay? You've not logged in or drilled over into the Financial Edge NXT system, so you've not used any of your Financial Edge licenses up to this point. Okay, now the next level, if you wanted to go a layer deep and actually look at the source detail within Financial Edge, that's when you would invoke your Financial Edge user license, okay, because that requires you to actually log in. So let's do that. I'm going to click on the batch number here within the drill down. So it actually takes me over to Financial Edge for me, and it's going to load that batch for me. So you can see the batch is 2273. So this is the journal entry where this number on the report came from, that batch 2273. Okay. Now I can drill into some other areas as well. Now you'll notice that this came from accounts payable because we're showing the journal here. So I have the capability as well, if I wanted to drill into the accounts payable invoice directly from the report, I could do that as well. So see how it took me directly to FE and it put me in that invoice record, okay? Also, I can drill into the general ledger account record from there, okay? So it took me right there to the GL account. And if I wanted to go to the project record, okay, I can do that as well. Okay, and again, that's all controlled based on how you as the power user design the report. Okay, now you could also drill to the account and the project directly from the first level of the report as well. So if you wanted to go into this technology fund project right from here, you could simply click on it right from the top level of the report. And now it's taken me all the way back to the technology fund project. Okay. So that's the drill down that's available to both the power user and the view user. Okay. Now keep in mind, every report has extensive security built in. So the power user really can determine whether or not the viewer is allowed to drill into that detail. Okay. And then if they can drill into it, then can they go even another layer deep to go back to Financial Edge? So all of those things are what the power user controls through how they've established the security settings on the report. Okay. Now, I want to point out a couple other things here while we're in this report. You'll notice here that I've got a couple other columns on the report. This one's a percentage column, and then that's an amount. What Power Cloud allows you to do is if you want to incorporate other information within your reports that might not be in Financial Edge, but yet you want to put those on your reports, you can easily do that. So what I've done here in this report, you can see I'm using a VLOOKUP command, okay, that basically looks into this column and finds the project. And then it goes to this lookup sheet that I've got here. Once it finds that project on my lookup sheet, it stores the percentage on there and actually embeds that in the report. See how I put the 35% there? And then I'm using that in a calculation. So what this is doing is this is helping me when I run a report. This is allowing me to put in maybe a percentage that we're allowed to get reimbursed for a specific expense type for that project. So in this example, what we've said is that for this project, for any salary expenses year to date, we're allowed to get 35% of that back as a reimbursement, right? So I don't have to remember that or do the calculation. Now, what if that 35% changes? Maybe it goes down to 31%, okay? Once you change it there on the statistics page, back over here, you can see it automatically reflects that within the report and it updates the calculation as well. So again, a lot of flexibility, not only with great formatting and with drill down, but also the ability to do kind of more statistical type reporting or calculations that you might need to include within your reports. Okay. Now, before we go into the design piece, I'm going to go back to my home page, and there's another report here that I'm going to run. This is my balance sheet report. Okay, so I loaded up the balance sheet, and I'm just going to go ahead and click report run. But before I do that, again, I'm going to point out this control date here of June 30th. So basically what this is saying is that I want to run a balance sheet, and I want to run it as of June 30, 2021. So let me go ahead and run that. And it's going to pull that information in for me and apply all the formatting. So now you can see if I scroll all the way down, now I've got my balance sheet. Now, you notice I do have two different columns. So the way I set this balance sheet report up was for column C here to be the prior year to date as a comparison. And then this is going to be my current year to date, and then a variance. Okay. Now, down at the bottom, I also wanted to show you this is we do have the capability here as well to be able to show you the breakdown of the net assets. So it'll give you that balance at the beginning of your fiscal year. Then it's going to show you the net activity during that time period, and then the ending net asset balance here, which again will always equal what you're seeing here on the net asset line item within the balance sheet report itself. And of course, you do have drill down there as well. Okay, so if you wanted to drill into that data, just click on the number and it loads all of the activity up, right, for that specific year to date. Okay, now, if you know within Financial Edge, when you have your balance sheets, it's a little bit cumbersome if you want to run a balance sheet maybe for any time in the past versus, at the current date. You have to go in and modify those columns within the report. Well, with Power Cloud reporting, the way we've designed it is that you simply can change the control date. So what if I wanted to run this report balance sheet as of August 31? I simply just change the control date, click run, and then I'm going to get an updated balance sheet as of that date. Okay, so now if you look in the heading, how it changed that, right? So now it's as of 8/31 and also with the prior year comparison. Okay, and the same detail information down at the bottom here as well with the drill down in the net activity. Okay, all right, so that's really when you're using reports, what you have available to you. so it's very easy to refresh reports, and then you can drill into all the detail and all the information. Okay, so now let's go back to our home page, and let's now switch gears and talk about how you actually set up and design these reports as a power user. So I'm going to open up the sample revenue and expense report in design mode. Okay, now there's two components for every report within Power Cloud. The first component is what we call the visual report outline. Okay, that's going to be similar to your chart organizer that you're used to working with in Financial Edge. Okay, so over in Power Cloud reporting, you're going to create those outlines, and then when you create a report, you're going to simply select the outline that you want to use for that particular report, okay, when you run that report. So let's take a look at that component first. So back over on my home page for the sample revenue and expense report, if you look in the VRO name column, this shows you which outline you're currently using on this report. Okay, so I'm going to click on that link to edit that outline. Okay, so let's scroll down, and you can see this design window is where you're going to build the framework for the report. Okay, so you can see I have a revenue section with some subcategories, and then I have my expense section with some subcategories. Okay, now once you build the framework, you go into each section and define what's going to go into that section of the report. So if I click on the program revenue, I'm going to scroll down here to the filter section. So you can see you can assign transaction activity to any section of the report based on any of these filter items. Okay, you can individually select account numbers. So you can see those are shown here in the lookup. Or in this case, what I've done is I've gone to account code and I've said anything that sponsorship programs related, I want to go into this section on the report. Okay. Now, in terms of the flexibility here for filtering, you could also do something like, I only want activity if it's from my unrestricted fund. Okay, so now you can see what I've done here is I've applied two different filters to this program revenue section on the report. Okay, and you'll notice down at the bottom here, you can also do it by journal, by project, or by any transaction code that you might be using within Financial Edge. Okay, now let's close this out. And as you hover over each line, you can see it pops up and shows you so that you don't actually have to open it and see what your filtering is. Just by hovering over that, you can see that very easily. Okay, right, just by hovering. Now, one thing that Bob mentioned early on as well was the fact that Power Cloud reporting is multi-NXT environment capable. What that means is that you could conceivably have a report layout that pulls data from more than one Financial Edge database or from one Financial Edge instance. A good example there is organizations that might have their main nonprofit, and then they also have a foundation. But sometimes they want to have reports that incorporate information from both of those sides. So rather than having to run those different reports, export them out, and then do some combining within Excel, we have the capability here within the layout to include what's called the environment node, right? So you can see right now, if I click on the edit, it says select the environment. So in this dropdown, you can see I actually have two different Financial Edge environments attached or associated to this account. So underneath this CBS environment, this is going to be everything related to that environment. But then if I wanted to, I could actually add a new environment node here for the second environment. And when I save that, see how it puts that second environment down there. And then I could go there and start adding my headers, okay, right here to the report. And then I can start adding my activity, okay, however I wanted to show that. And then now when you click on the lookup, it's actually looking in this environment's database to get all of the values for the filtering, right? So now if I were to save this layout and use it on a report, I could get financial data from this financial edge system and from this other financial edge system. And then maybe I want to have a line item down below that does some subtotaling for me based on what I need there, okay? So that's creating your layout, okay? I'm not going to save those changes. Then once you do the layout, that's going to give you what you see here in column A, B, and C, okay? So I've got the layout in the B and C. Now, if we go back to design mode, down here at the bottom part of the design panel, you can see this is where you now add all of the columns that you want on your report, okay? So columns B and column C, B is pulling in the account, C is pulling in the project. Let me just show you that real quick. If I open that up, the column type here is segment, okay? So I'm pulling in the segment, and my segment down here is account, okay? So when you pull account number here, then it also says, do you want just the account number or the account description or both? So in this example, I selected both for that. Then the same thing with the project there as well, okay? If you pick that you want this to be the project, okay, you can either do the project description or the project code or both, okay? Now, when we get down to the actuals here, let me open this column D. So column D definition here, which is this column here. If I show you down in the drop down, the types of columns you can have, actual, encumbrance, or you can combine the two together, or you can have a budget column. And we talked about the statistical units and the segments, or is this an Excel column, okay, with a formula in it? Okay, so I've selected actual, and you'll notice here under the column title here, you can actually use any of these keywords within the column heading. And by doing that, then Power Cloud reporting will replace this keyword with the actual date. Okay, and again, that's going to be based on the control date of the report. Now, down here when you're selecting the period, this is the time frame for this column, right? So this one is set to be the month. You also have a fiscal quarter and fiscal year, and these are relative based on your GL setup. Okay, you could also do a range, or you could do a custom range by using the last option there. Now, here's where the flexibility comes in. If you remember back at the beginning, when I refreshed the report, I was pointing out the control date, that you can set that control date each time you refresh the report. Here's how that would work. When I ran this report initially, I think I ran this as of June 30, 2021. So the way Power Cloud reporting works is that it looks at that control date, and then it looks at the column definition. In this example, it knew that I wanted to put month in this column. Okay, so it looks at the control date and it puts the month of June in that column, as in that example. Then it goes on further to look at the relative fiscal period and the relative fiscal year setting within the column definition. Since I had this set to 0 for the period and 0 for the year, then it's going to give me the current period of the control date and the current year of the control date. Okay, so you might say, well, what if I wanted this to be the prior month in the current fiscal year? Then you just simply define that with a -1 in the period. So then it will look at the control date. And in this case, it was June. So if I were to save this and run the report with that June control date, I would get the month of May in this column because I had this set. If you want this to be 2 months ago, you would set it to -2 and so on. Okay. Now, additionally, in the relative fiscal year option, you might want this column to be the current month, but the prior fiscal year, right? So then you would set the relative fiscal year option to -1, okay? If you wanted that to be 2 fiscal years ago, then you would just set that to -2 and so on, okay? So by being able to use the periods here along with the period options, then again, the way you define these columns, then you can impact the time period across the report in every column just simply by changing the control date on the report. And that provides you with a lot of flexibility so that you can get these reports really for any date range or any time period without having to go in and modify column definitions every single time, okay? Now, down at the bottom, you can see I have the same filter capabilities at the column level, okay? So if you wanted a report maybe that had different departments in each column, you could do that as well. Or maybe you wanted, different projects to be in each column. You could easily do that as well by using the filter items, okay? Now, this next column, E here, is the same type of column. It's actual, but you'll notice I've got fiscal year. So I'm going to get the year to date in column E. If I wanted this to be the prior fiscal year to date, could set that to -1, 2 years ago, -2, and so on, okay? Now, finally, this budget column, once you go into the budget column, it gives you this additional option here, okay? So you can click in the budget scenario and you could pick which budget scenario from Financial Edge that you want to report in this column, okay? And just like with the actuals, you have the same capabilities here with the period, okay? So you can select whether you want this to be, the month to date budget, the quarter to date budget, or the fiscal year, or again, there's your range and then there's your custom column as well. And then you have the same filter capabilities there as well. And these last 3 columns, you can see I have them all defined here as Excel formula columns, right? So back over here, I've got my column for the variance, and then down here, I'm using those VLOOKUP commands to pull data from other areas of my workbook to incorporate those within the body of the report, okay? And then the last thing that you need to do once you've created your outline and added your columns is then to just apply your formatting. And you can see here again, as I mentioned early on, I've done some highlighting here. I've done some border underlines, some bolds, and some additional border underlines here as well, just to, again, make my report look a lot better from a presentation perspective, okay? Then once you're done, from that point forward, it's just a matter of clicking Report Run, selecting your control date. Each time you refresh the report, click Report Refresh, and then you've got your report completed, okay? Now, the last thing I want to point out here before we wrap up is when you run and refresh a report, you can also filter the report at runtime, okay? So the idea here is that maybe you have a basic revenue and expense report that you've created, but you want to run that maybe for a specific department. Well, rather than having to have a report for each different department with the department filter built into the report, you can just simply say at runtime, okay, I'm going to pick Department 02 here, and I'm going to filter this report for Department 02. So now when I click Report Run, it applies that filter. So now you can see I'm only seeing activity for Department 02 in my report, but it continues to maintain all of the formatting that I have here within the report, okay? So that concludes our overview today of Power Cloud reporting. I appreciate all of you taking your time to watch the overview. Hopefully you saw some really good features that can help you be more productive with your reporting and be able to provide information across the organization a lot more seamlessly and a lot more efficiently. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Bob for a couple of closing comments.
All right. Well, thank you, Robbie, for taking us through the Power Cloud reporting demonstration. As I mentioned earlier, if you do have additional product questions, pricing questions, or training questions, I'm more than happy to answer those for you. Please feel free to reach out to me via my 800 number or my email listed here. And we very much appreciate everyone's time and consideration of the Power Cloud reporting tool.